This is Land of Havilah, 1 Chronicles 25. David was a multi-gifted musician, soldier, poet, and prophet. In his youth, he won a musical talent search, so to speak, and became King Saul's personal harpist. When he played, somehow his harp channeled the power of God to soothe Saul's evil spirit, 1 Samuel 16. So he learned early that music could be a tool of the Holy Spirit. His interest in music never faded. He appointed musicians to help bring the ark to Jerusalem, and afterward he stationed them at the ark to play there continually, 1 Chronicles 16:37. Meanwhile, other musicians played continually at the tabernacle in Gibeon to give thanks to God, 1 Chronicles 16:41 and 1 Chronicles 23:6. There was a connection between music and prophecy, such as when Elisha was about to prophesy. But first he said, "Bring me a musician." When the musician played, quote, Yahweh's hand came on Elisha, end quote, to prophesy, 2 Kings 3:15. So since David realizes the role of music in spiritual matters, he's about to organize the core group of Levite musicians as we go to verse 1. Moreover, David and the captains of the army set apart for the service certain of the sons of Asaph and of Heman and of Jeduthun, who were to prophesy with harps, with stringed instruments, and with cymbals. The number of those who did the work according to their service was of the sons of Asaph, Zaccur, Joseph, Nethaniah, and Asherellah. The sons of Asaph were under the hand of Asaph, who prophesied at the order of the king. Of Jeduthun, the sons of Jeduthun, Gedaliah, Zeri, Jeshaiah, Shimei, Hashabiah, Mattathiah, 6, under the hands of their father Jeduthun, who prophesied in giving thanks and praising Yahweh with the harp. Of Heman, the sons of Heman, Bukiah, Mattaniah, Uzziel, Shebuel, Jeremoth, Hananiah, Hanani, Eliatha, Gedalti, Romamti, Ezer, Joshbekashah, Malothi, Hothir, and Mahaziath. All these were the sons of Heman, the king's seer, in the words of God to lift up the horn. God gave to Heman 14 sons and 3 daughters. All these were under the hands of their father for song in Yahweh's house, with cymbals, stringed instruments, and harps, for the service of God's house, Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman being under the order of the king. The number of them with their brothers who were instructed in singing to Yahweh, even all who were skillful, was 288. They cast lots for their offices, all alike, the small as well as the great, the teacher as well as the student. Comment in verse 1, David and the army captains appointed 3 men, Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun, to be head musicians. It's not apparent why the military was involved in music, but there was one time later in Israel's history when the musicians were the point of the spear. They led Israel into battle with songs of praise, and by the time they arrived at the scene of the battle, it was already over. Upon hearing the music, Yahweh had caused the enemy to turn their swords on each other, and they were all dead. 2 Chronicles 20. In verse 1, we just read, Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun were appointed to prophesy with harps, stringed instruments, and cymbals, meaning to compose and sing inspired lyrics with instrumental accompaniment, songs from Yahweh's throne room. We still have some of it. Asaph wrote 12 of the Psalms, such as Psalms 50, 73, 74, and so forth. Psalm 88 credits Heman. It's, quote, a contemplation of Heman, end quote. The headings of Psalms 39, 62, and 77 indicate that David wrote them and gave them to Jeduthun to be put to music. In verses 2 through 8, Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun all had sons under their direction, and Heman had daughters as well, plus they had help from their brothers in verse 7, meaning other Levites, such that in all there were 288 under the direction of these 3 men. David assigned 4,000 Levites to music in chapter 23, but it seems these 288 under the direction of Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun were the all-stars. In verse 8, the 288 cast lots for the order of service. Coming up, they organized themselves in groups of 12, with each group having a leader. 288 is 12 times 24, so that made 24 rotations of 12 musicians each. They were, quote, for the service of God's house, in verse 6. So this contributed to the holy atmosphere at God's house, at the temple, at the tabernacle. But their job wasn't to sing for men or to create an atmosphere for men, but to sing to Yahweh in verse 7. Now the lottery for the rotation, verse 9. Now the first lot came out for Asaph to Joseph, the second to Gedaliah. He and his brothers and sons were 12. The third to Zakkur, his sons and his brothers 12. The fourth to Isri, his sons and his brothers 12. The fifth to Nethaniah, his sons and his brothers 12. The sixth to Bukiah, his sons and his brothers 12. The seventh to Jeshurela, his sons and his brothers 12. The eighth to Jeshaiah, his sons and his brothers 12. The ninth to Mattaniah, his sons and his brothers 12. The 10th to Shimei, his sons and his brothers 12. The 11th to Azarel, his sons and his brothers 12. The 12th to Hashabiah, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 13th, Shubael, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 14th, Mattathiah, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 15th, to Jeremoth, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 16th, to Hananiah, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 17th, to Joshbekashah, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 18th, to Hanani, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 19th, to Malathi, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 20th, to Eliathah, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 21st, to Hothir, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 22nd, to Gedalti, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 23rd, to Mahaziah, his sons and his brothers 12. For the 24th, to Romamti-Ezer, his sons and his brothers 12. Comment: 1 Chronicles 26 is next.